This is Gemara in Kiddushin, Daf Samoch, and once again, Eretz Yisrael, Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael is in our tefillos, in our minds, in our hearts, and all our learning should be an incredible schos HaTorah should be megan on Kol Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael. And we're holding in the bottom of Nun Tesem and Beis, we're approximately smack in the middle of the large lines at the two dots. First one line is Kavosei Diravet Nachman. And the Gemara continues with Mikudeshas Le Sheni. That what happens, someone marries woman Lachar Shlishim Yom, someone else comes and marries her within 30 days. The halacha is she is married to the second guy. Amar Rav, says Rav, Mikudeshas Le Sheni Lo Olam. Ushmuel Amar Mekudeshes L'Sheni Ad Lamid Yoim. You're married to him until 30 days. La'achar Lamid Yoim Paki Kiddushay Sheni. The second guy's Kiddusha disappears. Vegamri Kiddushay Rishon. So fascinating Machlokes Rav and Shmuel as to how long the Kiddushay Sheni of the second guy lasts. Rav, perhaps the Pashtus in the reading of the Mishnah teaches us you're married to the second guy forever. Shmuel says, what do you mean? But the first guy's Kiddushin is going to kick in at 30 days. So the second guy's Kiddushin could work until 30 days. But at day 30, the Kiddushin falls off and the second Kiddushin takes effect. Asks the Gemara, Yosef Rav Chisda v'Gagashalei. Rav Chisda is sitting and asking, Kiddushay Sheni b'mai paki. Shmuel, I don't understand. What enables, what causes the second guy's Kiddushin to fall off? Amr Rav Yosef, Mar Areisha Masile v'Kashalei. Rav Yudah Seifa Masile v'Lo Kashalei. You're learning that Shmuel is talking about the Reisha, when the guy married her, La'achar Lamid Yoim, and now you have a Kasha. But what happened in reality, Rav Yosef, whereas really Shmuel's din was on the Seifa, on the case of Me'achshav Ulachar Lamid, and therefore there's no Kasha. V'lo Kasha Me'achshav Achar Lamid v'chulu. And on that case of the Seifa, where someone marries someone from now and after 30, or conditional Kiddushin, on that, Amar Rav Mikudeshes ve'enu Mikudeshes la'olam. Rav says there's a Safek Kiddushin forever. Ushmuel Amar Mikudeshes ve'enu Mikudeshes ela ad lamid yoim. There's a Safek Kiddushin only until day 30. Balachar lamid yoim, there's no longer Safek. Pakei Kiddushay Sheni ve'gamrei Kiddushay Rishon. And now the Gemara explains, according to Rav Yosef, who's learning that the Machlokes Rav and Shmuel is on the Seifa, explains the Gemara very simply, what is the impetus of this Machlokes? L'Rav misafkele Rav is unsure Tanai Havoi ichazar Havoi. Rav is unclear. Is it a Tanai? Is it a Chazar? When someone says, I want to marry you today and after 30. So according to Rav, it's a Safek, and it will always be a Safek. But L'Shmuel B'shitale D'Tanoy Havoi, that it's a condition, and therefore it's conditional. So for 30 days, it's true they're hanging in limbo. But after 30 days, boom, the Kiddushin kicks in, and they're only married to that first guy. The Gemara explains that this Machlokes Rav and Shmuel, Uplukta Tani Tanoi, has a precedent in a previous Machlokes Tanoim, the Tanya. We learned in a Brisa, a Mishnah and Gittin, Brisa and Gittin, that we have seen. Me'ayoim ulachar misa. If someone marries a woman today and lachar misa, get ve'enoi get divrei chachamim. Say the chachamim it is, and it isn't a get. Rabbi Omer, because I get, it's a straight up get. So says the Gemara, V'neima Rav halacha ki Rabbanan, V'neima Shmuel halacha ki Rabbi. So if Rav and Shmuel are arguing in the Machlokes Rav and the Rabbanan, why don't they just say, I hold like the Rabbanan, I hold like Rabbi? Says the Gemara, you know why Rav and Shmuel didn't simply say they're arguing the same machlokes? Sricha, we needed them to argue both times. If Rav would have said that I'm passing like the Rabbanon in Ge'in, that my home lachar misa is a safek, explains the Gemara, Hava Amina. I would have thought Hasam only over there by Gittin. And we had this exact Gemara in Gittin that you're coming to distance yourself, you're getting divorced. But in Kiddushin we come to get married. One would think that Rav Maskip to Shmuel that it's for sure a Kiddushin because he wants to get married. And if Shmuel would have just said Alachin Kirabi, I would have thought also get lachar misa. Maybe it's specifically a gittin issue that there's no marriage after misa. Therefore, the Gemara says Rav and Shmuel had to list their machlokes 2 times. Continues the Gemara, Amar Abaye, let's delve a little bit deeper, 2 lines from the bottom of the Testament base into Shitas Rav. According to Rav, in this case, Misa. Reuven comes and marries this woman today and after 30 days. Shimon comes and tells her, I'm marrying you today and after 20 days. We turn over to Samach Hamad Aleph and continues the story. Continues Abaye within the Shita of Rav Ubach of Ramla Rem U'Gedesh Esli. So we have 3 people potentially marrying this woman, each one saying Me'achshav Ula'achar X amount of days. Says Abaye, in this case, you know what the story is going to be? Me'rishoinu me'acharainu sricha get. From the first and the last, Reuven and Levi, she needs a get. Me'im sa'i einay sricha get. Why? Explains the Gemara, explains Abaye Manavshach. If it was a Kiddushin, the Kama Kiddushin. So if the first one was a Kiddushin, Hanalav Kiddushin, nothing else a Kiddushin. And if each time they're backing down and say, I want to marry you now. Okay, no, after 30 days. I want to marry you now. No, after 10 days. I want to marry you now. No, after 10 days. So which one of the 3 is a Kiddushin? The final, the last one. Then Ichazara Avoy Debasar Kiddushin and Tanachlav Kiddushin. And therefore explains Abaye, she would need a get from the first and the third, but not from the middle guy, because whichever way you twist it, the middle guy doesn't need anything. Says the Gemara Pshita, Shkoyach Abaye, what's your chiddush? Explains the Gemara Ma'u de Tema, 7 lines down. Hai lishna mashma tanai, mashma chazara. Maybe the wordage itself, according to Rav, inherently is both, and therefore Tibai Gita Mikol Chad V'Chad. And therefore, maybe each and every woman requires a get. Kamash Abaye, this chiddush that no, it's a suffix. But if we have 3 people, then within the suffix, the middle one is nothing, and the middle one will not require any level of get. Continues the Gemara, that was Abaye explaining Rav. Continues the Gemara, Samach Amalf, about 10 lines down. Ula Amar Rav Yechon comes along Ula, and he says in the name of Rav Yechon, Afilu Meya Toivsin Ba. Even 100 can grab hold of her. Chenam Ravasi Am Rav Yechonan Afilu Meya Toivsin Ba. Even 100 can grab hold of her. 99 days, etc., etc. And the Nikuda Samachlekes is that Ravasi Am Rav Yechonan and Ulam Rav Yechanan is saying that you need a get, not like Abaye from the first and the last, but rather you need a get from each and every one of the men. So Ramashasha comes along and he says to Rav Asi, I'll explain to you the reasoning of Rav Yechanan that each one needs a get. Why? Shavu nafshe kishar gadalivna. The reason being is that each of these potential husbands made themselves like Sharga Delimna, rangers of bricks. Each one left a little space for his friend. Therefore, each Kiddushin at some level grabs hold of a little bit. Therefore, she needs a get for each and every one. Asks the Gemara, Shavak, leftover. Masiv Rav Chanina asks Rav Chanina, Me'ayom L'achar Misa. In the case of getting that we quoted on Amar Beis, get ve'inoi get. Ve'meis what's halacha, chaylatzes, v'loi mesiyah be'emes. So says the Gemara, based on this price and gain, bish, shlomo Rav. I understand according to Rav Mesayele, Ushmol Nami, Amani Rabbanani, Vanan Damri Kirebi, Ela Rav Yechanan Damri Shiru Yahave. So it comes out that we really have a three-way machlekes. Rav is a suffix, Shmuel says it's Tanai, and Rav Yechanan is saying that each and every one has some level of place to be chal. So says the Gemara, Rav we can explain, Shmuel we can explain. But according to Rav Yechanan, that each and every one is leaving over a little bit of place. Kol Gita de Mishayer Ba V'loi Klamu. Says the Gemara. So when it comes to Gittin, the halacha should be any get that leaves over. We know that Gittin needs to be krisos, has to be absolute. And if the get is leaving over a little bit, it's inherently not absolute. And therefore, what should the halacha be? The halacha should be that the get is nothing, and therefore what? Yevume miyame. You should be able to do yibum because there was no get at all. Says the Gemara, Amar Rava, explaining Rav Yechanan, get lahaitzi umisa lahaitzi. Again removes this woman from marriage as well does misa. Masha shayir get gom rasai misa. And in the case of death, which is of course the case of Yibum, whatever they get left over, the Misa will finish off. Armle Abaye is not happy with Rava's explanation. Mitami, what do you mean? Get Moitzim Rishus Yavam. Mita Machneses Rishus Yavam. It's true that both Get and Misa at some level, of course, remove this woman from her husband's possession, but with regard to the Yavam, they do opposite things. So Elam or Abaye, 3 lines from the white lines, rather comes like Abaye and he explains, Asam Taim Amai, Gezeira Mishamayim Mesi, Harei Zaget. It's a Gezeira Zerabanan, and that's the reason why they need Chalitza. Says the Gemara, V'nigzer Mayom Mesi de Techlites, Atu Mayom Lachar Misa. So in all cases we should require Chalitza. Explains the Gemara, Imata Imer Chaletz Misya Be'emes. You're going to be afraid that if we require chalitza, then, so that was the reason why we required a get. So ask the Gemara, you should require chalitza. Says the Gemara, no, because if you think that you need a chalitza, people think you could do yibum. Says the Gemara, says the Gemara, in our case, why? Because it's all din derabanan. We explained this in Mesechus Gittin extensively, and therefore there is no concern. We continue with the Mishnah, 3 lines into the white lines of Samach Amud Aleph. Ha'omer li'isha, someone says to a woman, I'm marrying you a Kiddushin, I give you 200 zos. What's halacha? Reisi mukudashes. But Vuyitin, he has to pay up. Case number 2, I'll pay you within 30 days. What's halacha? Nasan la, if he paid over mukudashes. Case number 4. I have 200 zos. Harezim mekudeshes, if of course, v'yeshla, yes. Almanasha erech masayim zos. Harezim mekudeshes. I marry you a kedusha that I show you 200 zos. Show you 200 zos. Harezim mekudeshes v'yerla, yes, to show it to her. V'imhira ala shulchan. But if you showed her the money on the table, then we don't necessarily assume it's his money, and therefore, einai mekudeshes. So there's numerous cases in the Mishnah of Kiddushin with different types of conditions and how he has to fulfill those conditions. Says the Gemara, Itmar, Rav Huna Amar v'hu yitin, Yehuda Amar lichshe yitin. So the Mishnah said that if someone marries a woman, I'll give her 200 zos. The halacha is, give her you're married, but you have to give her the 200 zos. So says the Gemara, when is the Kiddushin Chal? Is the Kiddushin Chal now, and there's just a condition he has to give her the 200 zuz? Or no, when he gives her the 200 zuz, that's when the Kiddushin is Chal. So Rav Yehuda says, when he pays, he's married. Whereas Rav Huna says, no, she's married. It's just a classical Tanai v'hu yitain. He has to pay up. And now the Gemara explains, Rav Huna Amar Vuyitin, he has to pay, and then she'll be married retroactively. Tanai Ave, it's a simple condition. Mekayim Tanai Vazel. However, till he pays, Mia Lo Have Kiddushin. Says the Gemara, what's the mafkamina? What's the difference in these two sheetas? My benayu, ikmeinayu. Explains the Gemara, simple nafkamina. B'shabashta yada. V'kibla kedusha me'acher. That she went and accepted kedusha from someone else in the interim. L'Rav Huna lo have kedusha. Why? Because it's a condition. So when he eventually pays, when were they married? Back to moment one. So if she in the interim went and married someone else, it's irrelevant. But the Rav Yehuda, of course, have a kedusha because they're only married from the moment that he gives her the money, and not prior. Says the Gemara, Tanan Nami Gabi Gittin. If this sounded familiar, that's good, because we have the same machlekes with regard to Gittin Ki Hai Gamna. 4 lines in the bottom. Samach Amid Half. Hoy Malisha Rizik Gittin and Lima Sayim Zozik that you give me 200 zozah and Megurashas v'titin, and she has to give it. And over there, Ravuna Marvihi Tite, she has to give him retroactively. She's divorced. Rav Yudah Merlach Shatitin should be divorced. Ravuna Marvihi Titin Tanayavim Mekayim Tanayavazal, civil condition, fulfill it, and you're retroactively divorced. Rav Yudah Merlach Shatitin Chayav Lavi Gita Davigat Hashtamia Lavigat. And over there again, we said Mamish the exact same thing as we turn over to Samach Amid Beis. My Benayo, what's the practical difference between Benayo? Shenitkra Get Oisha Avad, that the paper itself was either ripped up or lost. According to Rav Huna, is a simple condition, and therefore, once the money is given, retroactively she is divorced. I don't care if the interim, the paper was lost or destroyed. Whereas the Rav Yehuda, but according to Rav Yehuda, no, law of a get, it's not a get because she's only divorced the moment that she pays. So now, whenever we have the same din, the same machlekes listed 2 times, the classical sense, the Gemara says, why do we have to say it 2 times? Usricha, Samach Amid Beis, 3 lines down. Tiashvina Gabi Kiddushin, I would have thought about Kamar Rav Huna, Misham de Kreva Kasi, because you're coming to come closer. And therefore, that's the reason why Rav Huna says it's a condition. And when you pay, you're retroactively married back from moment number 1. Aval Gerushin de Rechaika Kasi Ema Moidule, the Rav Yehuda. But Gerushin, which you're coming to distance yourself, you would have seemingly maybe agreed to Rav Yehuda. And if he only said the case of Kiddushin, I would have thought, come Rav Huna. A Gerushin, that's Rav Huna says, the Misham de Iulo Kasle Mitbeh. She's not embarrassed to give the money because she is not embarrassed to give she's not embarrassed to, he is not embarrassed. See, that was my mistake. He's not embarrassed to ask her for the money because they're getting divorced. But in the case of Kiddushin, she is embarrassed to ask him for the cash because they just got married. Maybe Rav Huna would admit to Rav Yehuda to only married once the money is given. Sricha, therefore, both cases had to have been listed. Says the Gemara, Meisvei, Akasha on Reb Yehuda. Hare Zagitech. We're about 10 lines down. First one line is Hare. Hare Zagitech. Lamanashat tonight and Lima. Sayim Zos. You're getting this. You're giving 200 Zos. Afal B says the Braisha Nitra get. Oisha Avad Hare Zamigurashes. But so says the Gemara, seemingly explicitly Rav Huna, that even though the paper is no longer here, they are divorced, seemingly pointing to the fact that it is a simple condition. Tanya says another brisa. Omar Love, he says to Arizegi to Chamanashat and Ali Masayim Zos, Umeis, and then he's nifter, Nasna, if she gives it Ein Zakukali Yavam. Seemingly why? Because if she pays retroactively, she is divorced. Loi Nasna, if she doesn't pay, Zakukali Yavam. Rashbago Emer Nosenis La'echav La'aviv La'echem and Akrivim, and you could pay it to any of the father, brother, any of the relatives. So Ad Kan Loi Pligi, what is the machlekes Rashbag and Tanikama Eladamar Savar Livla Yarshai? Omar Savar Fil Yarshai. The machlekes is only who can pay. According to the Tanikama, if you paid, because you can only pay to him and not to the Yarshim. According to Rishim Gamliel, you can pay him to the Yarshim. But the Kuli Alma Mia Tenayave. Everyone seemingly agrees, though it is a Tanai. To Yofta, the Rav Yehuda says the Gemara, this is indeed a kasha on Rav Yehuda. This is a raya to Rav Huna. Omar lecha Rav Yehuda, but Rav Yehuda does not go down without a fight. He says, Hamani, who are these two brises going like Rebbe? These are going like Shitas Rebbe, Damar Rav Huna, Amar Rebbe, Kolam Ramanas, Ke'oimer Me'achshav Dami, Upligi Rabban Aleva Da Amri, Kirabanan. So answers Rav Yehuda, and this is going to be the discussion in one moment, the next line of Gemara. Answers Rav Yehuda, it's not a kashami, because these two brises are going Shitas Rebbe. What is Shitas Rebbe? Rebbe is a chiddush. Rebbe holds Kol Ha'omer Al Manas inherently is as if you said Me'achshav Dami. Whereas the Rabbanan argue and says Rav Yehuda, I go with the Rabbanan, that it's not like Me'achshav, and that's the reason why in all these cases it's not going to work. It's not like a Kiddushin, etc. So says the Gemara, okay, Gufa. Amar Rav Huna Amar Rebbe. Let's delve deeper into this statement of Kol Ha'omer Al Manas Kol Me'achshav Dami. What is this statement of Rebbe that Manas is like Me'achshav? And Rav Yehuda just said that he holds not like Rebbe, rather he holds like the Rabbanan. Amar Rav Zera. So teaches Rav Zera. Ki avinon beBavel, I was in Bavel, have Arminon, I would have teach. Ha Damar Rav Huna Amar Rebbe Kol Ha'omer Al Manas Kol Me'achshav Dami. This din Upligi Rabban Nalei. That's what I always thought. But Kisalki Lahasam, when I went up to Eretz Yisrael, teaches Rav Zera, Ashchid Rav Asi, I found Rav Asi Das of a Kamerlah Mishmei Rav Yochanan. He was sitting and setting a name over Rav Yochanan. Kol Moedim. Ba'im Al Manas Kol Me'achshav Dami. The Rabbanan don't argue. If you say Al Manas is a condition. A condition is what? Today. One gets married on condition she pays. That means it's a me'achshav. It's happening today. When is there a machlekes Rabbanan and Rabbi Rabbanan and Rebbe? Ela mehayoim ula'achar misa. It's only in a case of mehayoim ula'achar misa. But in a regular case of manas, there is no machlekes. Ve'ha-tanya. Now this ve'ha-tanya is a Raya. Mehayoim ulachar misa, says the Brisa, 10 lines from the wide lines. Get ve'enoi get divrei chachamim. Rabbi Yomer kazeh get. And Rabbi says this is a get, and this is the case in which there's a machlekes mehayoim ulachar misa. So what's the kasha now? The kasha is now on Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda says that the chachamim argue even in a regular me'al manas. Well, Rabbi Yehuda damar b'amanas nami pligi. According to Rabbi Yehuda, niflegi b'yom l'achar misa, niflegi b'amanas. Ask the Gemara, according to Rabbi Yehuda, what does he do with this brisa? The brisa seems to imply there's only a machlekes b'yom l'achar misa, and Rabbi Yehuda says no, the machlekes is in all amanas. Says Rabbi Yehuda, no, lo diya kocha de Rebbe. The brisa only said that to show the din of Rebbe, the b'yom l'achar misa, nami harei ze get. Ask the Gemara of Livli Amanas the Deal Koich de Rabbanan. So one of the Brises say Amanas to show the Koich of the Rabbanan, and of course, as always, Koich Dehetira Adif. It's always a more of a bigger chiddush to show the Mikol Shita, and that's the reason why the Brisa did that. So Rabbi Yehuda sticks to his guns, and we wrap up today's shir with 2 lines from the wide lines. Amanas Etil Chamikan V'Lamin said the Mishnah the Merkudeshes if they pay within that amount of time. Says the Gemara Pshita, it's obvious. Explains the Gemara on the last line, I would have thought maybe it's not a Tanai. And maybe he only said this to be Mizaris, to give the money within a short amount of time, but he didn't really mean a good old-fashioned Tanai. Kamash on the Mishnah, that is a Tanai. And we continue, I have 200 zuz, says the Gemara Nechash Shemi Yeshlai. Maybe he does have. Furthermore, we learned that a brayso chashin shami yeshlai. Says you're right for kedusha safik, but it's not going to create a kedusha vade. Amanash erech masayim zuz v'chulu. Tana, we learned when he says the Kiddushin, I'll show you. So as says the Brisa, what's pshat in the Mishnah? The Mishnah says if he showed her the money on the table, they're not married because it's not his money. Why not? He showed her money lemaisa. He seemingly fulfilled his tanai. So explains the Gemara, no, the words on Manas that I'll show you connote that he's meaning to show of his own money. And finally, 4 lines into the medium-sized lines, The chiddush is that even though this was a business venture, and even though he gets a chelek, a portion of this money, still, Lamaisa, it's not all his money, therefore they are not mikudashes. Let's just learn the Mishnah, and then we will call it a day. Amana sheishli beis korah, similar to the previous Mishnah, if someone gets married in condition that he has a beis korah of dirt, harezim mikudashes, if v'yeshlai. Amana sheishli b'makom p'laini, if he has it at a place, mikudashes, v'em lavina mikudashes. Amana she'erecha beis korah, I'll show it to you, harezim mikudashes, v'yarnis to show of him, herabibika, einai mikudashes. Let's just do the first line of Gemara, because it's carbon copy of the Gemara we just said. Ask Gemara, why do we worry that he has, even if he didn't show her the land? It's true, I'll create a Kiddushin Vadi, will not create a Kiddushin Safik. Another obvious kasha. What do I have to say the same case twice? Sricha. If you only said the case by money, I would have thought Misham David people hide money. By land, I would think they won't know about it. The Chiddush is the same thing applies by land. We'll pick it up from here in the next year. B'siyata dishmaya.